In this report, I explain how to retire on a tourist visa. Certain problems seem to occur over and over again when you retire on tourist visas, so I want to explain how to overcome them. But first, I want to explain how I learned about this. I'm an American, but I have lived outside the USA since 2007. During that 14 and a half years, I have lived in 67 countries, some for just a month at a time, other for 3 months at a time, others for 6 months, and just one for 8 months. But I've lived internationally for those 14 years without ever applying for a retirement visa. That means I've been wandering around the world for 14 plus years, 67 countries on tourist visas. During that time, I've never bothered to apply for a retirement visa, not once. I just slow travel around the world, staying only for the time that each country gives me as a tourist. In fact, over the last 14 years, I've visited countries almost exclusively that welcome me with open arms, asking only to see my passport upon arrival. I shy away from countries that ask for bank statements, pension information, in-person interviews, or any other personal information. I've never applied for a retirement visa. I've never applied for residency in any country. In fact, I have rarely even applied for a tourist visa in those 14 and a half years. I rarely go to countries that require me to apply for a tourist visa before I fly to them. Call me spoiled if you like, but I don't like going to foreign embassies and standing around waiting to give money to government officials for the privilege of spending money in their country. I have no negative thoughts about any country's right to decide who can visit and for how long. All the power to them. Every country has that right to decide its entry requirements. I just don't want to encourage that sort of behavior by giving them my money or my time. 5 tourist visa countries in my passport. I just checked my passports, both old and new. Of the 67 countries I've lived in since leaving the US in 2007, I've only applied for a tourist visa before flying to 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Vietnam. Those 5 required tourist visas before flying to them for Americans. I was very interested in seeing those countries for a few weeks or months, and there was no way to do it without applying for a tourist visa. That means that I have only applied for 5 tourist visas before flying. That is less than 10% of the countries I've enjoyed. 4 visa upon arrival countries in my passports. In just a few more countries, Indonesia, Nepal, Myanmar, and Laos, I had to complete a simple form upon arrival in the country and pay a small fee. But nothing was required from me before flying. That means that over the last 14 and a half years, I was able to travel to 62 of 67 countries with only my passport. No visa application was required to fly, only a passport. Onward tickets and proof of accommodations. Only half of those 62 countries that I entered with only my passport required me to show an exit ticket or explain where I would stay during my visit. So I traveled all over the world basically with only my passport and was asked for very little information upon entry. One clarification. The title I gave this video was How to Retire on a Tourist Visa. But what I'm telling you is that if you are from a favored country like the USA, UK, Europe, Japan, or about 20 other VIP countries, you can retire and travel most of the world without ever getting a visa. So maybe I should have titled the report, How to Retire All Over the World Without Any Visa at All. Not a retirement visa and not a tourist visa. Of course, this depends on the power of your passport. I'm in Panama today. I can hear your thoughts. Dan, you can't go anywhere right now because of the pandemic. Well, I beg to differ. I've kept traveling almost the entire time. Since the day the pandemic hit the world news, I've been in Malaysia, the Philippines, USA, Mexico, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, and now Panama. I've traveled to 7 countries during the pandemic. In the 20 months since the pandemic has been in the news, I was only stuck 7 months when I was locked down in the Philippines. Other than that, we've been enjoying the world on tourist visas. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not irresponsible. I follow all the rules and all the doctor's recommendations in every country I've traveled to. And I verify all of the safety requirements for each country I'm entering before buying my ticket there. Then I fly to that country and I follow all of their health crisis requirements. Now the rules change faster than I can report this to you. So the purpose of this report is not to share a list of countries open today that will be closed tomorrow. I want to share something more valuable, a concept that you can use for decades, like I have. Since I'm an American, I will use my passport as an example. I'm going to speak in general terms with this example, but visa and COVID rules change all the time, so you need to double check for any new requirements on the date you want to travel, no matter where you are going in the world. Instead of citing visa and COVID rules for 180 countries that will be accurate for 24 hours, I want to share a general concept with you that will be good for decades. Your retirement will hopefully last for decades, so you can use this idea for decades. How to retire on tourist visas for 14 years. You'll run into various problems when you slow travel the world on a tourist visa. I'm going to use actual problems we encountered along the way, so you'll know how to solve them in advance. But first, I want to show you how to retire on a tourist visa for 14 years. I flew into Mexico in September of 2020, and they stamped my U.S. passport with 180 days entry. There was no visa required before flying and no visa application on entry. They just asked how long I would be in Mexico, and I said I would be touring around for 6 months, and then I would go to Guatemala. I just handed them my passport to the immigration official, and they stamped it for 180 days in Mexico. I had printed out my accommodations in Mexico for the first week, but they didn't ask for it. I didn't have an onward flight, and they didn't ask for it. We toured around Mexico for 6 months, and then we flew to Guatemala. They stamped our passports with 90 days and didn't ask for proof of onward flight or proof of accommodations. But the truth is, some countries will require proof of onward flights, leaving their country, and accommodations. I will explain how to solve those two immigration requirements after I explain how to retire and travel the world for 14 years. To retire on a tourist visa, just slowly move forward through the world, staying however long each country gives you on entry as a tourist without applying for a tourist visa. The amount of time each country gives you will depend on what passport you have, so I will use my passport as an example. As an American, you can just start in Mexico and slowly move south through Mexico, through Central America, and through South America. Most of these countries have extensions available, but I almost never bother with that. I just move along slowly to the next country. If you fall in love along the way, you can apply for an extension or do a visa run to a neighboring country and just go back to see your new love. If the love lasts, then you can bring your new love to whatever country is next on your list. Just slowly head south through the Americas. Let me give you an example. Mexico, 180 days. Belize, 30 days. Guatemala, 90 days. Nicaragua, 90. Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, all 90 days. Panama, 180 days. So, through the Americas, as an American, you can spend 3.5 years retiring on a tourist visa or visa exemption. Come to vagabondbuddha.com and check out our 80+ Retire Cheap reports, not only about places to stay, but also how to avoid many of the problems we encountered over the last 14 years. So an American can retire in the Americas without getting a tourist visa or a retirement visa for 3.5 years. They can just cycle back up to Mexico and start all over again, or head to another part of the world. You might be wondering, how long is the Asia slow travel circuit for Americans without getting tourist visas? Well, let's take a look. Thailand, 30 days. Philippines, 1,080 days with $20 per month extensions. Malaysia 90 days, Indonesia 30, Singapore 90, Sri Lanka 30, Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Papua New Guinea all 90 days. So you can move around Asia for 4.8 years, trying on only a tourist visa or visa extension. How long is the Eastern European slow travel circuit for Americans without getting a visa? Georgia, 365 days, Armenia, 180, Turkey, 90, Bulgaria, 90, Macedonia, 90, Albania, 365, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, Slovenia, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, and Latvia, all 90 days, for a total of 5.69 years. So if you are from a favored nation like the US, you can slow travel throughout the world, the Americas for 3.5 years, Asia 4.8, and Eastern Europe for 5.7 years, for a total of 14 years without a retirement visa or a tourist visa. In most of these places, you can live on around $1,500 per month or less, and you can travel on the ground between many of these countries that are within the same region near each other. So you move slowly, linearly forward through them on the ground whenever possible, avoiding expensive flights. So you can retire on a tourist visa or no visa at all as you slow travel around the world for 14 years. Okay, I promised to talk about actual problems you'll encounter on tourist visas. Visa exemptions. Visit the embassy webpage in your home country for the country you intend to visit. Don't do it now. Do it right before you go to each country because the rules change all the time. For example, Americans would visit the embassy webpage in America online for Romania when they want to visit Romania. At the Romanian embassy webpage in America, verify whether or not you are awarded a visa exemption when you go to Romania and how many days you can stay in Romania on the exemption, and read all the requirements. Do you have to fly into Romania, or can you take a train and get your exemption at the border? Do you need to show a flight or train ticket leaving Romania before the end of your exemption period when you try to enter? Do you need to show where you will be staying in Romania while you are there? What else do you need? Okay, onward flights, buses or trains. If an onward flight or ticket leaving Romania is required in order to enter Romania, do you need to print it out, or can you just show them the ticket on your smartphone? Also, do you need just the confirmation number or the e-ticket number? When we tried to board a flight from Dominican Republic to Panama, we showed a printout of an onward flight with a confirmation number, and they said it wasn't enough. They wanted to see an e-ticket number on the printout. You see, there are ticket companies out there that just book a reservation for an onward flight that only costs you $12. You can just Google onward flights to find them. They just rent you an actual reservation for 48 hours for $12. Your name is actually in the system if the airline checks. But the reserved tickets don't have an e-ticket number until the reservation is paid. So an onward flight companies only rent the reservation for $12 or $20, it varies, during the 48 hours you need to clear boarding and immigration. So you only have a confirmation number but no e-ticket number. So when our reservation was refused by the airline, we had to jump out of line and buy an actual ticket on Orbitz.com before they would let us board the flight to Panama. Luckily, Orbitz let us cancel the flight during the first 24 hours for free, so we canceled the ticket once we landed in Panama. We intend to exit Panama within 180 days as required. We just aren't sure where we will go next, so we don't want to have a ticket we aren't sure we will use. Luckily, Orbitz had the 24-hour cancellation policy, so we didn't waste any money. Accommodations. If you need proof of where you're staying in Romania, is it just for the first few nights, or do you need it for longer? Financial requirements. Do you need any proof of your ability to pay your expenses in that country? It's not common for Americans, but citizens of some countries need to prove they have enough cash or credit cards on them to pay their expenses before they are allowed to enter. Other odd requirements. Make sure to read everything. Some countries now prohibit drones. Many countries prohibit guns or other weapons. Read carefully all the requirements for each country before you try to cross the border, and do it right before you go to see if they've changed. All right, that's how to retire on a tourist visa for 14 years. This is Dan of Vagabond Awake, the YouTube channel for vagabondbuddha.com. All of this is in writing. Just click the link in the notes below the YouTube video. Thanks for listening. Hey, if you liked our video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of that would help our business. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Click the link in the notes below this video to get a copy of this content. Plus, grab a free copy of my ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 13 Years. While you're there, check out our catalog of retired cheap reports all over the world and our hobby income course that we just released. Thanks so much.